Da, evo nas. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats so we can start off this second day of the World Sports Tourism Congress. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Once again, welcome to the second day of the second World Sports Tourism Congress organized by the government of the Republic of Croatia and the World Tourism Organization. It is my very pleasure to announce the panel on social sustainability, integrating communities into sports tourism development strategies. One of the main trends in sport tourism is that there is an increasing number of sport events. These are a catalyst for the economic development of tourism destinations as they generate benefits for all the sectors in the tourism value chain. Before we start the discussion, and before I invite my panelists, please let me invite Mr. Mario Carlo Ferrario, Chief Advisor of the Sport for Impact for Investments with the mandate from UNESCO to invest private capital in the Fit for Life project. So take a stage and lead us into today's topic. Mr. Mario, welcome.
Thank you. You send the slides over there? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here even today. The second day of the meeting normally is less attendance, but I can see there is a big one. My assignment today is really to tell you about major changes in major trends in financial market that have an impact on possible new ways of financing sport projects. Major trends deeply impacted the financial markets before impacting the sport environment. All of that in 10 minutes, so it's fine. We have time. So let's start from the financial markets. What's happening really? Over the last 30 years, 20 to 30 years, we've been through a real big revolution in financial market. What is most important to understand is that today, the great part of capital invested in financial markets is professionally managed, institutional capital. Institutional capital means that you're no longer investing as an individual, but you are investing through professional managers. That is for, pension funds, insurance company, banks, investment funds, private capital, private equity funds, venture capital funds. All of that is professionally managed. It makes a lot of difference in terms of the rules and the logic and investment model these people are applying. That is what we're talking about today. Second point I'd like to make is that over the same period, since the beginning of this century, we've been seeing a lot of pressure, particularly from younger generations, coming really from the people to have more responsive investment. That means that you should no longer look to profit, returns, just monetary profits and monetary return, but something else. Also, the impact of what you're investing in the community, in the society, and so on. This is not only the younger generation, but it's mostly coming from the younger generation. A lot of serious pressure. The implication of that is profitability is no longer, is still the king, okay, but it's no longer an absolute leader in the financial market in terms of logic of financing investment. And it all started, if you want, with the United Nations publishing the 17 SDGs, Social Development Goals. These are broad, high principles of what the world should be looking for to be a better world to live in. Then I started this whole process of responsibility also in the financial market and in the investment. And if we move forward from the SDGs, then there's been a lot of action, a lot of activity from regulatory agencies, from governments, from multilateral organizations, such as United Nations, but also European Union. European Union has been particularly active in trying to issue new directives, regulations, focusing investment attention and direction into more responsive investment. What again has been, well, there's a lot of this action, of course, has done now. We listened yesterday, it was mentioned by our UK friends, in terms of multiplicity of standards, metrics, benchmarks, etc. There is a lot of confusion in the market in this respect, and so there is a lot of need to standardization, and this is what is on. But there's also a lot of activity by regulatory agency forcing implementation of new legislation, which means it is compulsory for investors to be abided. And this is what we call moving from the SDG to the ESG. ESG are the environment, social, and governance requirements and rules that corporates must comply with in their activities. And that's another major change. Now, if you are an entrepreneur, if you know entrepreneur, no entrepreneurs until the beginning of this century had even thought of doing something different than cutting costs and improving profits. This is what being entrepreneur meant. And obviously making products of quality, market, etc. But all finalized to create better profit. Now it's no longer the case. You have to play in a different way. You have to report in your annual financial statements what you do for ESG, what you do for the environment, what you do for society, and what you do for governments, which means organization and the way you manage your company. Again, nothing really happened in this very legalistic way until the most important moment. It was 2015 with the Paris Agreement on the environment. Climate change has been really the key driver in this sense. Because for the first time with the Paris Agreement, ESG became very specific, detailed, defined. We have targets now. We know we have to reduce CO2 by 40% by 2035. Before it was, okay, environment, climate change are an issue, we have to do something, but everybody does what he can, what he wants. Now we have specific targets, with a timetable on that. And from that moved on to a lot of other issues. Most of that have been related to environment. It was also much easier. It's easier to identify what are targets and what are benchmarks for the environment and to measure them. Less so when you move from the E of the environment to the S of social. How do you measure social impact? That's a big issue, which is what we're facing right now. And this is actually what European Commission is moving on recently. There is now in the Parliament the Corporate Social Responsibility Directive, which again will be compulsory for all companies in the European Union, is not yet a legislation because it's still in the Parliament to be approved, but it's finalized. And they will include more regulation, more specific metrics, and an attempt to standardize some of these benchmarks and some of these tools, as well as presenting a taxonomy of industries with different risk levels for both the environment and the social impact. So you can decide when you do investment whether you will exclude certain industries from your investment targets or not. Again, the exclusion is another issue which is deeply affecting the way capital is now investment. In private equity, it's typical. Temporarily, if you raise a private equity fund, the investor will tell you, yes, this is your specific strategy is to invest into a new digital company, but you should not invest in companies that use digital innovation for arms, for a lot of this for cinema, for movies, so that's the trend. We're living in a very different world than 20 years ago. Much more regulated, much more standardized, with focused goals for both capital managers, so managers who are managing your investments, and for corporations to work together. Yes, the worlds are not yet converging. They are still moving into parallel lines, but are trying to converge into what will be the real new world of impact investment, which is what we are talking about at that. What is impact investment? Impact investment, in essence, is very simple. It's basically saying that you have to invest with a dual purpose. Investing with, of course, focus on return, risk, and return levels, financial returns, economic return, but also some ESG, some social impact, economic, environmental impact, or governance. This is, as I said, is a major trend. We're not yet really understanding the whole impact of that, because not only the regulatory agencies are moving stronger and stronger in this direction, but also research in the industry, in the financial industry. So when you have a research on a company, there is a lot of reporting of their business plan, what they're doing, what they plan to do, their strategy, etc. But then on how they assess the risk on the ESG they have, the risk they have. So if not assessing your ESG impact is becoming a financial risk. Again, a major change, significant change, because it means that you may assess certain capital or not. You may be excluded by a lot of investment. the same has happened on the other side, from the public funding. The public funding has been trying to move, sports is a typical example. When you have a new project for infrastructure or for a new project in sport, what do? You normally go to the government and ask for money. It's public funding you look for, because until now, no real private capital has looked at what would be a sport project. It's typically an allocation of money from the government. And you take a piece of this money, this allocation. But then, because of this pressure, there's some movement again. Government always say, no, they have stretched budget, they have little money, and so they've been trying to move, to push some of the burden, the financial burden, towards the private market. How? By, for instance, loan guarantees, a typical example. Instead of giving money, they give guarantees to the people who put up the money. It's not the same thing. It works, yes, up to a certain point in certain cases. This is the first movement. The other side has been investment pooling. Again, similar thing. It's just more technical in financial terms. And social impact bonds. Social impact bonds are a new, very recent development, last 5 years really. They come out of what used to be the development financing. The World Bank was giving to countries with lower income or middle income special so-called soft financing with development bonds. And now we've been trying to move this from government to government funding to private money coming into government domain and government fields. How is very simple. Basically, it means that you substitute the government as a funder with a foundation or a private donor that will actually pay based on the outcome, the social outcome of the project. The better social outcome, the more it will be paying. These are, I'm putting it in a very simplified way. There are many of these new investment tools, so there are adaptation of other tools. But what is really new and very recent is the social outcome contract. This is what UNESCO has been trying to do for sport as well, and is trying to do. There is a group of financial experts of which I am part that is working specifically on this. Social outcome contract means a contract, a financial contract, where you have somebody say, I'll give you the money based on some social outcome that are identified from the very beginning, before you enter into the investment phase. Then there is an independent evaluator who evaluates the social impact results of your project. Then there is another agency that guarantees the payment based on the outcome realized. So it's rather complicated. In the end, there's about 10, 12 different contracts. So for very few people, I think. It's rather complicated, but it's now becoming, and it's liked by government because for government it's a way to, yes, continue to give public funding to some project, for example, sport project, but with somebody else paying part of the bill and somebody else evaluating it, somebody else managing the project, is a relief for government. So less responsibility for government and more responsibility for the private sector in this respect. However, in the end, is still, in my opinion, in the domain of public funding, because it's a different way of helping the government to fund this kind of project. It's not yet assessing what I think is the big opportunity that we're facing right now. And the opportunity is really to move from public funding to private funding, real private funding. But it's not easy, because it implies a big change of mentalities, not only in government. Government is very happy when somebody else takes the bill, but for the people in the field who actually work out the project, present the project. If you are a sport organization and you want to raise some money, you have to change your mental habits and think of the different logic of the people that will give you the money. Not only the logic, they have different requirements. They are professional investor, professional institutional investor. They have fiduciary duties to their investor. If you are a pension fund, you cannot manage the money from the pension fund the way you like it, giving it away. you have a fiduciary duty responsibility to the investors who will actually expecting from you that in 20 or 30 years' time you will pay them a pension. And that's important. There are a lot of regulations, strict regulation on the way you can use this money, which is normally, and it should, and how it should be in my view. The same for investment funds, the same for private equity funds, for venture capital funds as well. So you have to understand that private capital doesn't come for free. It's not something new. There's no free lunch, as we say, never. So it's not something new that is big, it's right there, all we have to do is go and take it. No way. It is important to understand the difference, as I said, in regulation, mentality, investment models, logic, and what you have to give back to them. It's not just the social outcome. Governments may be happy when they can say that we saved so much tax money from the taxpayer, and we realized this new center, we realized we created so many new jobs. Fine, for the government this statement is okay. For the investor, it's not okay. It's not enough. You have to tell that your investment capital has made a difference in terms of this return, which can be in the interest of their investors. As I said, I think you have to understand that what is needed here is a dual-purpose project. A project that obviously is profitable, but also has a social outcome. I would say, I should have said in different order, a project that together with your social outcome, what you want to achieve in terms of sport, for instance, and the related benefits of sport in health, education, social inclusion, and profitability as well. If it's only social, it's fine, it's public, but it's not investable. It's not an investment product. Dual purpose is key. Dual purpose is one of the key issues if you want to address private capital. The second one, and the most important one, is also moving from broad SDG to specific ESG. You have to be detailed, analytical in what you say and what say are your return. Again, a good public statement is good for the SG, but it's not good for the investors. The implication of that has to be in your mind, in your logic, is that you are not asking for money from governments, from donors, from sponsors. You ask money from investors who have to report on the results of this money. So, do a purpose project from SDG to specific ESG, and I would say, finally, you have to really think that what you do is an investment. It's not a project. It's not a social project. It's not an environmental project. It's an investment. And moving from project planning to investment planning is another final key issue. I mentioned as a final remark to give you an idea of the opportunity if we can move this mentality from donors to investor, from money that is given to you to partners in your investment. If we succeed in doing that, the European Central Bank has estimated that as of last year there are already over 660 billion euro invested in impact investment. Again, take this with really a real distance, because a lot of that is really investing in companies that do a lot of green and social washing. Fine? But still gives you an idea of the amount of money that is available for the if you can succeed then to move sport project from this mentality of looking for government money or public funding, to the ability to access the private market. This is the huge opportunity you are facing there. And I'm really talking about thousands and thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of billions. And they're all there, waiting, because the pressure, the social pressure on the institutional investor to invest in impact, to do impact investment, invest in impact project is huge. And it's growing very fast. Everybody is talking about this. So you can see in the market now, all institutional investors are trying to set up a new impact investment fund. Doing what? They don't know. Where do they find the project? They don't know. Because, yes, deal origination is a problem now. Yes, until now, there is very little that can be invested in this arena, but that's the opportunity. Be first. And, you know, as Henry Kravitz, who is the founder and CEO of KKR, one of the biggest private equity funds in the world, said, impact investment is essential for smart investing. So be smart. Thank you.
Mr. Mario Carlo Ferrario, once again, a huge round of applause. Thank you for an inspiring introduction. I think we can take over from here, so it's now time to introduce our dear panelists today. I have a new list, so we will not do it randomly. Let's see. Okay, she's experienced in management with history of working in the sports industry, also skilled in business planning, customer service, financial administration, and communication. Since 2022, she's the president of Middle European Volleyball Zonal Association, Ms. Valentina Biflin. Welcome. We will be sitting from right to the left.
Thank you.
From this perspective, the viewer's perspective. Okay. He holds a degree in industrial engineering from the Polytechnic University of Madrid and a master's in business administration and management from IES University of Navarra. Currently, advisor at MedCup's board of directors, Mr. Carlos Anton. Please welcome Mr. Anton. Welcome. She oversees the implementation of the Olympic Games, impact and legacy objectives, working with upcoming and past Olympic hosts to create long-term benefits for local communities. Head of Olympic Games, Olympic Committee, Sustainability and the Legacy Commission, Ms. Tanja Braga. Welcome. For over 20 years, he is fully dedicated to education and school sport, whilst advocating the importance of physical education and sport practices at schools. He held the position of the National Director of the UNSS until 2018, now International School Sport Federation President, Mr. Loren Petrinca. She's the director of the Croatian Sports Museum, the president of the National Council for Sports, member of the executive board of the Croatian Society for the History of Sports, the vice president of the Croatian Olympians Club, and she is the winner of the highest award of Republic of Croatia for Sports, Franjo Bučar, and many, many others. Please welcome Ms. Danira Nakić-Bilić. We heard some really interesting stuff in the introduction. Dual purpose is key. I will quote it for the start of today's gathering. Tanya and I had a privilege to meet yesterday and to discuss about social sustainability during the lunch break. And we mentioned many times local policies. So let's start by talking about how do we accelerate those local policies involving people into sports tourism in general, and maybe then we can get into some details.
Thank you. I think there are three key points to accelerate and use sport in general, but in particular sport events, to bring those benefits to local communities. First point is to understand when you host an event, you need to have a clear view, a clear vision on what's the benefit it will bring to the host community. As I remember it was mentioned yesterday, not every event is suitable to every city or region. So this is the first point, to have really a good match between the long-term objectives in terms of social development for the host community and what the event could bring. And then to think how you can work with the value chain of the event, because usually we look at the event just that during the week or the few days where it's happening, while you have a big value chain behind, either the suppliers, the investors, the local community, that could be pulled to collaborate on projects and on common social objectives. And that's because we're talking of sport. I think a big point today is how those events could help to accelerate local policies, national policies on the area of physical activity and sport practice. Why? We have to tackle together a biggest challenge we have today, that's the challenge of physical inactivities. The younger generations are more inactive than never. If we look at data from World Health Organization, we could see that by reducing physical inactivity in 15%, that's their objective of World Health Organization for 2030, we could avoid 5 million deaths per year. This is basically one COVID pandemic every year that could be avoided by reducing 15% of the physical inactivity. So there is a way, when you host an event, to put local policies that are longer term than the event, to get people to change their behaviors and their ways of life to be more physically active. And this could be things, for example, Paris 2024 have worked with the French government to establish a 30 minutes of daily physical activity in elementary schools in France. This is something that would not have happened without the acceleration effect of the games, or as they working with cities all across France on active design in urban areas, to find clever ways through design to make people move more as they go about their daily activities. It's just a few examples, but...
Yeah, but a good one. You mentioned
stopping.
the weight problem, and you mentioned France, and what is the situation? How can local students benefit from big host events, and how can we educate them? Lauren, maybe this is the question for you to let's say, yeah, make awareness and maybe make a change and to affect them. I mean, the kids, they know it's a, for an example, you have European or World Cup, and they watch it, they cheer up, they get dressed up, but is that enough?
I prepare something to tell, but the subject is so interesting and moving with the panelists that I will adapt.
Of course, improvisation is
yes,
welcome.
Because I will start by quoting the Ministry of Sport of Croatia that I just met, Nikolina Brennjak. She told me ISF is the International School Sport Federation. We have 130 members, and we are organizing the school sport competition in the world. So to be fast, she said it's the best job in the world. And she said also that everything starts at school. So, and I say yes, it's the best job for sure. That's why I tweeted it 5 minutes ago. But it is a great responsibility because, and I think the sport industry sometimes, I am part of, so I can challenge myself, forget one thing is that 100% of the kids are at school, which is not the case of the classical federation, I would say, in sport. I'm a little challenging the debate, I know. 100% are at school, so it is, and all is starting at school, not only sport subject, but all the benefit, and also all the problems in the family, but also at school. So, and what's happening now, and I go on your direction, madam, is the fact that we are not on the good way because increasing of 2 points, obesity and all this problem, and increasing the problem of citizenship, I would say. So ISF start to focus on the health problem, and also the social responsibility of building the citizenship of tomorrow. So it means that in all our events, and I will go to Paris 24 if you accept it, madam, and going in your sense, in the ISF event, we try to tackle all these issues, bringing some knowledge to our students inside the competition, before the competition, about anti-doping, about harassment, about all the social part, and also giving some tools to have sustainable activities for the health, etc. So inside the event, we are doing this. We are also working with the local community in order to involve more schools inside our event. But this is just I would say a pretext, we say in French, sorry for the word in French. It's just an excuse to tackle. You say, what are you doing with the big stakeholders like IOC, FIFA, etc.? I say it's just a pretext because is the goal just to practice some sport and do the competition? No, finally, it's not enough. That's why we are challenging the big organization, and I was really following precisely the system of the 30 minutes at school for the French system. I will go back to this. We are challenging the stakeholders and the country, because I estimate, as president of the School Sport Federation, is that if you are, let's say, Qatar, you're organizing the FIFA. If you are France, you're organizing the 24 games. All is wonderful. We support this because it's a good image for the kids. They will play like Mbappé for Paris Saint-Germain. They will for the French team, etc. So it's wonderful. Without that, you cannot aspire. You know, you cannot take the generation. But if you don't put the same kind of investment to the kids, it's let's say a crime. So I'm really sensitive on the subject. If you forget this, you miss everything. Wonderful for the business. You give work to the people. So I really push this idea. I'm not mistaken about this. But don't forget the new generation. So I go. We are IOC recognized. We are talking to the FIFA, for example. We are talking to all the international federations. Each time there is a big event, we want that there is something for schools. After, sometimes it managed, sometimes not, etc. But I point the responsibility. I'm playing this part. I point the responsibility, and more, I must admit, the stakeholders of sport industry and the government, they are aware about this.
Okay.
Yes, because, you know, it's all our responsibility. We are adults, we have our lives. At the end of the journey, you say, what did you do for your kids? What did you do for the generation? So the example of Paris 24 is great. Why? Because sorry to say I am French, because I am as international here, but I was working inside the government as advisor for the Minister of Sport and Education when we put the 30 minutes. Immediately this good idea was taken by the politician. Why? Because it's a good motto, you say. 30 minutes at school every day, for political reasons, is very good, because everybody understands the message. And every adult say, oh, the kids, they are not moving at all, etc. So the message is very good. Then, and I tried to talk to all the ministers this morning in all the country. It's very difficult to implement. Why? Because there is something I tell at the beginning that the sport industry forgot, is that the problem is not inside the sport industry, the problem is inside the Ministry of Education. Because who has the responsibility of the young generation? Not the sport system, the Ministry of Education has all the generation, I said. So how to implement the 30 minutes of school inside all the schools? It's, believe me, with the unions, with the administration, with all the deconcentrated system between local territories, etc., it's difficult. If you don't have the energy of the stakeholders, if you don't have the political energy from the president to the secretary of state, so you have to align a lot of strategy for what we call a public policy, because 30 minutes is not more than a classical public policy for schools. It can be it can be writing, it can be lecturer, but now it's sport. So believe me, it needs a lot of energy about the impulse, and then a lot of energy inside to know the system, how it works, country by country. So our job, to summarize, is not only to organize the big event for the kids, is to influence inside the country each time we can, always, in order to be sure that at school they are doing more physical education, more activities, etc. Otherwise, I think we will miss our goal.
Is it fundable? Is it expensive? Is it doable? Investments?
I will not quote again the Minister of Sport of the country. She will think I will only talk about this. It's not a question of money, because the government actually The case in Croatia, this is not the problem. In France, it's not also the problem. They have the means, they have the teachers, they have the facilities, etc. Of course, in some countries, it can be more difficult, but most of the time, the schools are everywhere in the world. You have a small place to practice, etc. So you have the means. The problem is more the organization of the system. And if you need to find some funds, I take the example of the European Commission that can finance some things. You have also the World Organization that you can find some funds, but believe me, it's more complicated to have the strategy before. And then, in fact, when you are clever and you have the strategy, I think you can find the funds. The problem is asking the funds and then I will do the job. It doesn't work like this. You have to build a strategy and then you can find it.
Thank you. On the same topic, Carlos, you say that MedCup is more than just a sports project, not just you, your colleagues. 700 clubs, if I'm right, 12,000 kids. What do you mean by that? Tell us more about the MedCup, and do you have the same issue on this topic?
Thank you, Ivan. As you say, we are focusing grassroots sports, and as you say, MedCup is a huge tournament that takes place in the
like top 3 in the world. Top 3 in the world?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And we are only 2.5 years old because we have only released 2 editions, and in this month of June there will take place the 3rd edition. So we are very young, and we are in the top of the grassroots tournaments in the world, for sure. But I would like to talk a little bit, because even these numbers, these figures you say, 700 teams, it is a little bit disactualized, because, you know, nowadays we have already 750 teams already involved in the tournament, but also a wait list of over 300. We have to manage with that. Okay, so it is a complete success. But let's talk about these grassroots tournaments, because and how it was born. Because we take care not only about the competition, but also about education and values. And why?
How do you do it?
Yeah, but let's go to the main reason before. Okay. Because 3 or 4 years ago, looking at neighborhood competition, you know, of course, federated teams, we saw and we noted in the news that in one of these teams there was a fight, but not a field fight among the players, but among the parents. Can you imagine? And it was recorded by a cellular, and it was broadcasted in the television, and you know, this was so ashamed. You know, what are we doing in the society?
Yeah, what is the message?
Yeah. Every parent look at his child, thinking he will be, or she, the next Leo Messi. Mm-hmm. You know, and with the statistics we have from La Liga in Spain, it demonstrates that from 16,000 kids that are federated and play soccer, usually only one become professional, and not Leo Messi, only professional.
Just professional, yeah.
Only professional, you know. We take care of the rest. With our project, we take care of the rest, not that one, because that one will be taking care, the clubs, the professional clubs will take care of him. We take care of the rest. So in our project, what we do is, of course, it takes place during the final week of June, where it is the moment where most of the countries' school has already finished, so it is a very good moment where the kids can travel, because our competition, our tournament is an international tournament with over 35 countries and over 150 international teams. Okay, so it has to be in a moment where it is very good to travel to Madrid because of the good weather and everything, but they have to finalize their school period, okay? So, but this is a tournament, but we work during the whole year with the schools in this education, training, and education in values. We go to the school, to every school, and we try to develop sport values and work with these sport values with the kids, trying to encourage them to bring these values to their lives and develop skills that will be worth for them in their lives in the future. You know, like effort, like, you know, everything that it is beside sports. And this is our view, and this is what we try to do. Regarding, regarding sustainability and regarding the place where we develop the event, we also are partners of the United Nations World Tourism Organization, and we work closely with them because we are committed with the local partners where the venues are, because we bring them a lot of people from outside that get in love with the area. They return in the future. We do a lot of things. Imagine there are about 14,000 players, about 30% abroad from Madrid, from the region of Madrid. They bring with at least two or three relatives or friends, and they spread this worldwide, and they promote the venue and the worldwide. So this has a very important impact in the tourism, and so it is a return for the venue and for the place where we play.
Your impact in almost 3 years is totally impressive, but you mentioned going to school and educating and working with them. Who goes to school? Volunteers, professionals? Who does that?
Our team.
Yeah. How big is the team?
You know, it is. You know, it is hard to do this during the year, but this is what sustains our activity during the year, because, you know, Maria is also here, Miguel Angel, our CEO, and all of our team. The schools are continuously demanding to go into the school to implement our educational program in the school, where we by ourselves, we dedicate time with the kids and to teach them about these values, and also practically implementing them with even playing clinics or whatever, where we can show practically what is the aim of this and how to bring these values to their lives. You know. We with the pandemic, and it is in the recovery plans, we talk about resilience. But you know, resilience is the classic value of strength. You know, resilience is not it's not new. It was established in the past. Everybody was trying to educate their kids in strength, you know. So we bring that to the school. Strengthen yourself, don't complain. You know, in sport, if you want more, if you want to improve, if you want to achieve better results, you have to train harder, you have to work harder, and never complain. You know, this is practical things to go in schools and to be implemented in the schools. And this is to grow a better society. And as you mentioned, we are working with the kids. We are working in schools because what it happens in the school will be our future.
We have a perfect example of a person who worked hard as a professional player, and she's here with us. But for a professional, you often mention the necessity of a holistic approach to sports tourism by interlinking sports and cultural activities and institutions. How do we connect those, and do we have an example, Danita?
Yeah, okay, thank you. First of all, I would say that holistic approach nowadays is unquestionable. That is necessity.
It's a standard,
and,
yeah.
Yes, and when it comes to interlinking sports and cultural activities, I would say that it's possible that, like as the Republic of Croatia currently is striving to establish a symbiotic relationship between the field of sports and field of culture. For example, in the strategic document of development of sport in Croatia, that is the National Program of Sport, the Croatian Sports Museum, as National Sports Museum, was given a role to foster relationship between sports and cultural activities. The experiences of the Croatian Sports Museum workshops have shown so far that there is public interest not only in history but in active history. For example, the most popular workshops of the Croatian Sports Museums are those that tried to revive physical activities and sports as they were in the 19th century, and like in the 19th century, in the time when the first modern sports appeared. You know. So another example of the connecting sports and cultural institutions. Is, for example, cooperation of the Croatian Sports Museum with the Croatian Water Polo Federation. We organized the exhibition about the history, long tradition, and the greatest success of the Croatian water polo on occasion of 35th European Water Polo Championship that held in Croatia last summer in Split. So we set up that exhibition in the sports arena where the competition took place. The main idea was not only to evoke memories of the wider Croatian public, but also to provide all visitors, participants, spectators with unique and enriched experience because they have opportunity to learn about sport history and significance of sports for that city and that country where they were located. Sports has a deep, I would say the sport has a deep connection with the history and with the culture of their respective regions and countries, and they are excellent tool to provide visitors with a rich history and cultural context. Of course, this approach can also encourage greater engagement of visitors, for example, visiting interactive exhibitions or participating in sports workshops, educational programs. Then can also encourage community involvement. For example, initiating some programs. For example, currently Croatian Sports Museum is leading a citizen science project with aim of recognizing detection of people and events of sports photographs. And using a group of sport journalists from Croatia that used to follow the sports. So also, of course, this approach can create economic and sustainable impact to destination. So I would say that this combination, there's no cooperation and linking the possibilities that that have sport institutions and cultural institutions in creating some sports events that, that they can, together with the touristic organizations, then can create unique and authentic and more appealing touristic offers, offers for sports tourists. So I think that that would be, that is, in my opinion, the area that is still unused. Because the modern museum nowadays, they are not just places with collection of artifacts that you can see behind the glasses of the museum showcases, but they are more focused on telling stories and of interactivity.
Yeah, we mentioned it earlier, like exploiting nostalgia, emotional attachments to it.
Yes, yes,
so
of course.
It's limitless. Creativity is the key. So who does that? Do we have any role models in foreign countries?
I beg your pardon, I didn't hear you for the beginning.
Yeah, but nostalgia, exploiting
Yes.
these moments, those magical moments, the passion and that emotional attachment. Do we have some role models? Who's doing a great job at the moment?
Yeah.
Oh, Dražen Petrović Museum.
I agree
Thank you,
with the
Duda.
Duda. Yeah, I agree. Dražen Petrović Museum. You know, sport is associated with strong feelings. Athletes becomes heroes, idols, like Dražen Petrović, for example. Teams become something that that fans associated with, you know, and the fans and sport enthusiasts are deeply emotionally attached to their favorite sports, athletes, teams, and I agree. Like exploiting, or better to say, not exploiting these feelings for sport tourism, it would be wrong. Because I think it can be it's drivers for, you know, for sport tourism, you know, emotions. Yeah.
And for new generations and inspiring.
You can, for example, organize a meeting with sports legends. You know, so imagine people having possibility to meet a sport hero that he admired for many years. You know, and that can bring again emotions and that you had like. Previously watching his greatest success, you know, so that athlete. So that is, that creates nostalgia and emotional attachments. So using that in order to create more attractive, more authentic, or more compelling offers for sports tourism, okay, the potential is huge, of course.
Of course.
I would just like say, if I might, I would just like say one digression, because you were talking about you know, the problem with ISF, you know, that you have with other ministries. I would just like to say that the Croatian Minister of Education recently changed the law and actually increased the number of the hours of physical education classes. So I'm really hoping that's going to be going to have a huge impact on all of these things that you were already talking about. Thank you.
We're mentioning sports so many times. Tanya would like to say something.
Yes, just to,
Please.
To complement this question on the emotional and some examples, just to come with two international examples, some beautiful things I have seen. One, it's in Oslo, who have hosted the Olympic Games in 1952.
Okay.
They have a wonderful museum in their ski jump with a lot of emotion, and that bring this cultural side, the history of snow sport, but also a lot of interaction. And the other very beautiful example is in Japan, in Nagano. And I had the pleasure there at the museum. There is the interactive, but the emotional side. I was received by 2 volunteers. They should be around 8 years old, and they told me that they volunteer 1 day every week since the games in 98. So it's 25 years after the games. They still going 1 day every week to volunteer at this museum to share these feelings, this experience with the young people
Well, that's some
in
story.
Nagano in Japan. For me, it's very beautiful. I get goosebumps every time I remember this conversation. So the power of these examples that
Yeah, the nostalgia, the emotions,
Daniela
and
was saying, it's
the experiences. Thank you for perfect examples. And we are talking about sport, we are talking about tourism. This is our second day, but we have sports, we have sport business, we have sports and business. It's totally three different categories. How do they differ, Valentina?
Well, first of all, hello, everyone.
Yeah, we haven't forget Valentina. We haven't forget you.
Please allow me to start with one quote because I think it really fits perfectly into our subject. It's a quote from Mr. Nelson Mandela, and he says, "Sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair." So, having that said, I hope the English-speaking public will not mind that I address to our colleagues in our beautiful Croatian language, as everybody else speaks English.
We have translation.
So I hope
Headphones.
the translation service will do their work.
Hope that doesn't.
Dakle, jako mi je drago da smo se svi ovdje okupili, to što nas...
I am so pleased that we have gathered here today. The fact there are only a few of us here left, it doesn't mean that our topic is not as important. The topic is so wide that I really hope we will be able to cover or touch upon at least part of things that we should touch upon today. I have to say, for yesterday's and today's panel, it is unquestionable that sport is a discipline which carries numerous social impacts, economic impacts, health impacts. However, what we can see from all the presentations today and yesterday, I didn't plan to say this, but I have to be spontaneous now. It seems to me that sport has lost its competitiveness. We are all behaving here like some followers. No, sport has to be the leader. We always say, oh, we can't do this because there is a law, or there's a problem in Ministry of Education, or problem at the Ministry of Health, or Ministry of Labor. Okay, let's not look for problems. Sport, from the beginning of history, from the moment it was created, the sport was the one that was leading people, inspiring people, achieving successes. So the sport needs to define the rules if we want to raise better children today, for the better sportsmen today, and for the better people in society tomorrow. Therefore, we are the people who are making these decisions, and that we need to show with our example that sport has to be the one that leads the way. I would like to greet the initiative that I have seen in Spain. I'm coming from the Croatian Volleyball Association. For a long time, we were on the margins of the society, but we're not afraid to take a small step in the right direction. So in cooperation with Croatian School Sport Association and with support of our Ministry of Tourism and Sport, we are implementing a project in which we are introducing volleyball in schools. In the first year, we had only like a dozen schools. It was very slow. But then next year, we had 20 schools, and now we are working in 60 schools. So what we need to do is expose children to sport activities. We talk about how special children are. We speak about obesity. And what are we actually fighting against here? I'm a mother of 2 girls. I know what they do all day. They sit at home and they look at their screens. Sure, they do some sport. They are active as possibly they can be. But why are they staring at their mobile phones? Because mobile phones are available to them the entire day. If we would impose sport activities, I'm not saying about violent imposition, but subtle imposition to expose them to sport activities that would be available for the entire day of their stay in school, the results would be totally different. And I totally agree with colleagues from school sports that this is something that we need to work on. It needs to be our imperative. But it's not like we are now trying to adapt to someone. No, we have to be the ones who will dictate in what way and how we want things to get done. And then the entire system will follow what we want. But before that, we need to clearly define what we want. And then we can find a way how we are going to implement this in a way that everyone else services this vision and aim. Okay, I'm sorry for this digression. I'm sorry that I had to digress here. No, but this was a really very welcome comment. I personally believe that in Croatia we have a great strategy for sport. We have a well-organized system supporting the strategy, but what we need to do here in Croatia, I don't know what the situation like in other countries, but we have to make sure that this system really comes to life in reality, in practice, that we really have enforcement of the strategy. Because as true sportsmen, as true athletes, we shouldn't think about how we can't do something, but how we can show an effort and try to win the match. Okay, sometimes we will lose a match. It doesn't mean we lost the whole tournament, right? Yes, and at the next tournament we can be better. Okay, sport and business. When is sport more useful for societal aspects? When sport is business, or when we have both sport and business? How does that work? Well, for 2 days we have been saying that sport is business. No, that's not true. Sport is sport. However, sport creates an environment around it that generates economic benefits. So, we are talking about apparel, we are talking about transport, about hotel industry or hospitality industry, we talk about infrastructure. So, and let's not forget the betting industry. I was shocked by a piece of information recently at the conference in Milan, in Italy, that the entire betting industry, do you know its worth? Come on, give me a guess. 1.3 trillions of dollars. I can't imagine what kind of money we are talking about, but this is shocking data, shocking. So what is it about? The sport is the one that generates in the society different economic benefits that derive from sport activities. However, at the same time, what is the percentage of these funds that return back to sport and to the society as such? Because when we think about the possible sources of, for example, national federation, sport federation, in majority of cases, 60 to 70% is coming from the state budget. But now, when you draw a parallel, we have a very unpleasant conclusion that public funds are funding commercial sector and not just sports. And what does the commercial sector return back to sport? So that's the question of all questions. And this is something that we need to tackle in terms of legal or regulatory framework or tax reform to allow the money to come back to the system of sports. Because without sport as such, in 10 or 15 years, none of these businesses would exist. they wouldn't have the money if all our kids end up on mobile phones. We heard in presentation that we should be heading in direction from public to private funding. Well, yes, I'm extremely happy that we here have with us Mr. Mario Carlo Ferrario, because he can give us a totally different perspective of the future of financing in sport. I can give you a very vivid example of World Volleyball Federation that has signed 2 years ago a contract with CVC Capital Partners. They are a private equity fund, and they work on investments in different sectors, but volleyball is their number one sport activity. We all know that NBA is financed from private funds, so it can serve as an excellent example where we can see how commercial sectors and sport can function perfectly. Why? Because by investing in sports and sport activities, we raise the value of the sport. So sport athletes become of better quality, tournaments become much more attractive for visitors. We are expanding the supporter base, and therefore companies have much more interest to promote themselves at these tournaments or competitions. And when we speak about ESR and all the other socioeconomic impacts, of course it's huge. But when we speak about the examples, our World Volleyball Federation has done a great example. With the money that they got from the investment funds, they are developing volleyball in all the areas where volleyball was not developed. Why? To make the sport more massive, to gain numbers, and as such to become more valuable for further investments. So in this regard, I think this is something that we should focus. I think that is the future. I would just like to add to the presentation before and to the presentation of Mr. Nixon from yesterday. He said that there is no point. I mean, he listed some 5 most interesting sports for visitors. I don't know, was it for Croatia or worldwide, but he said there is no point investing in events that don't have interest among the general public. I don't agree with that, because how will you create interest if you will not organize competitions and promote those competitions? So I can give you exact examples that will rebuttal that statement. In our beautiful Zadar, which is the base for our Croatian Volleyball Federation, for the past 3 years, when we had a small club in Zadar, we had 20 kids playing volleyball. After 4 years of our activities in Zadar, we now have 12 clubs and 400 children doing volleyball. All these kids today volunteer at our competitions. They come to our competitions. So the organization of 1 or 2 tournaments in a city, which is a basketball city, there is no natural volleyball audience. There is no tradition of volleyball here. But we managed to create a new niche, generate interest among the young population. So tomorrow we can expect to see a bigger interest for volleyball. Sure, trends change. And when there is, for example, a good series on Netflix on Czech, everyone wants to play Czech. Yes, that's an example, but we are talking now about skiing, which is ranking 5th in Croatia. But let's be realistic. Until Janica Kostelić and her brother Ivica didn't show up, we didn't have skiing in Croatia. And no interest for skiing in Croatia. This means that we need to expose our children to sports in order to have interest for these sports. I'm sorry for speaking at length now, and we lost time. We are running late.
Some final ideas, everybody. Danira?
Okay, maybe it's easier to have a digression on what I already heard. I think that Mr. Ferrario said there is no free lunch. There is no free lunch.
Yeah, he said that.
Yes, but the investment in sports, investment in culture, investment in cooperation, culture and sport, we should we should watch as impact investment, right? So I think that all investments in sport, not just because of all things that we today heard, but because all potential the sport has in upbringing children and youth, upbringing our future, of course, then, is huge. So that all investments in sport and cultural activities and tourism are impact investments.
Thank you, Danila.
You're welcome.
Lauren, any final thoughts?
No, perfect. I appreciate a lot all the speeches. I think there was something like misunderstanding about the last speech, but we are not complaining and we are tackling the issues. I never complain. I always push the idea.
Inspiring to
yes,
yeah.
of course. And we are very positive about the proposal that we have in all sport industry and government. We just have to be attentive because the facts and figures, they are not positive. The motivation, the energy of the stakeholders and the government, I would say the both, sport industry and politics decider are quite positive. So for this, we can be very optimistic. And but in all the public policy to inverse a curve, because for the moment the curve is not good. To inverse a curve, this is difficult, and it needs a lot of energy and a lot of means. But we are here to give the solution. So,
Thank you so much. Tanya?
Yeah, I think I will go on this direction. Two main conclusions from the conversations. I think the first is this need to think long term, but use the sport events as a catalyzer to push these long-term structural changes that Laurent was talking about. And then thinking about the reflections from Danila as well, how sport, culture and education going together, this is where we can find the biggest impact if these three things always come together.
So the change of the mentality, as we already were mentioning. Carlos, your final ideas, conclusions, maybe some.
Valentina, it was very interesting the approach you showed us involving even your own kids. Because, you know, when I was a kid, for us it was very difficult to find a venue where to play soccer in the street or whatever. And now we have a lot of venues, but no kids in the venues playing soccer, no? You know,
tables for table tennis, many baskets.
And
we had
sport.
like one playground in the
This
hood,
is a reality. So we are doing a lot of things for the kids. We are providing a lot of facilities like venues, like coaches, like clinics, like a lot of whatever, in order to encourage them to play. But they have to kick their goal. We cannot kick the goal for them. You know, so in that sense, at MadCap, we are even providing some interesting tools because, as Mario said, sport has to be sustainable. And of course, in MadCap, we invest a lot of money to rent venues for our tournament, referees, all the staff, and so on. So for sure, even being very cheap for the teams to participate, sometimes for the families it is an amount. Okay, so we provide interesting tools like a crowdfunding tool that encourage the teams that are not so wealthy, okay, their families, to promote their participation in the tournament and involve their relative friends and their local community, because this is worldwide, to support them to participate in the event. And also we have created MadCap TV, what it is a second generation OTT, where they can record about their team, their activity, what they do, what they can achieve, and everything. And we offer this facility where they can show worldwide their image to the community, because MadCap, in less than 1 year, it has over 100,000 unique users and we are achieving very good results. And we facilitate these tools. We are every time implementing innovative tools in order to try to recover the sport into the street. We are also involved in other European projects with Sport for Impact, trying to come back to give back the kids to the streets to play informally, three against three, basketball or soccer or whatever.
Of course.
You know, so we are very committed with this, and so I appreciate very much what you showed, and because we are aligned with that. Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Valentina, hoćemo na strateško planiranje, borbenost.
Strategic planning, grit, goals. Are we going to end on this note, or would you like to add anything else? Well, I would like to mention 3 key tasks that I can see before us. And then I would like to end with one sentence. I think sustainability, sport investment, infrastructure, that should be our priority. Before that, we need to define our goals and introduce planning, strategic planning into sports, because you always need to have a plan. That's the first thing. Whatever you do in life, you need to have a plan. And thirdly, when we finish with all of this, when we get the funds from the investment funds, and once we have the strategic plan before us, then you need to have good people with qualifications who can absorb that money, who can direct that money and use it in a nice and a smart way in order to increase capacities of the professionals who work in different sports organizations, for example. And also, I think we should also address trainers or coaches. Coaches need to be good motivators. They need to take care of our children. And they need to be strategically wise. And finally, I would like to say that Croatia is traditionally a sports country. However, the tradition does not mean that you should just worship the past. You need to keep up doing the good work. So I would like to ask everybody, our international guests as well, all of you who care about sports, please, let's fight, let's keep up working on sporting activities. We need to educate our children in order to have better future for everybody. Nice ending. Thank you very much.
Mario said and mentioned ESG as part of Paris Agreement, but also said that impact is as important as return of investment, some new trends. Thank you for that. Also inspiring from public to private funding. Well, we'll have, I hope, another panel on that topic. And one thing is for sure, which I think is a huge problem, that parents should be fighting near the playgrounds. They should be motivating, they should be educating. So to all my panelists, keep up the good work. Thank you for your time. Thank you for inspiring kind words. Molim vas jedan veliki aplauz za Danila.
Please, a round of applause for Danila, Mario, Carlos, Valentina, Loran. And now we will have a short break just before the second panel. I really hope we will be all here in time.
world. It's like if some guy did.
Ah, you can do it. Okay. Bom? Yeah, yeah.
Kind of we are
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats so we can start with the next day's panel about environmental sustainability. We will have enough time for networking afterwards. Please take your seats. Thank you very much. Neću zbog tebe, ovdje se neće naći. Ma gledam kako tonu, Ne, ova iz organizacije, dečko, vidiš da ih gura, ne, sve okej. Sve okej. She's a journalist, former television host, columnist, event manager, and founder of the Agency for Public Relations and Event Organization Primetime Komunikacije, and my colleague and dear friend, Nevena Rendeli-Vezović.
Thank you, Ivan. Hello, how are you? Everything okay? Yeah, okay. My name is Nevena Rendeli-Vezović, and I will be the moderator of the last but not least panel today. I think we are going to talk about really important topic. Addressing challenges in mitigating sports tourism footprint will be our last topic today. So please give a big applause, a big welcome for Ms. Sanda Čorak, Institute for Tourism Board, President of the Croatian Judo Federation. Hello, thank you. Mr. Rafael Muella, Director General Foundation Real Betis Balompié Board. Hi. Mr. Guntur Dviarmen, Strategic Lead, Host Venus Sail GP Board. Mr. Tomislav Globan, Professor of Sports Economics, Zagreb University. And Ms. Maja Pak, Director, Slovenian Tourist Board. Welcome. So I'll sit here, and everybody okay? Great. So a little introduction in today's topic. Sport tourism must be developed in a way that ensures the preservation of natural resources and biodiversity, and all stakeholders should implement strategies and actions to minimize the CO2 emissions and environmental footprint. This panel will analyze the main challenges to mitigate the potential negative impacts of sport tourism-related activities, as well as identifying solutions and best practices to address them. We'll have a lot of case studies, examples, really great examples. So I'll start with the questions. We have two perspectives today. First one is the destination perspective, and second one is sport property perspective. Maybe to start with you, Mr. Dviarmen, what are the main criteria when Sail GP chooses destination? Is the environmental perspective important for you?
Yeah, thank you very much, and a very good topic to discuss. I guess it might help to give a bit of an introduction to what Sail GP is for people in the room who aren't aware of our property, and kind of what we stand for as a league. Sail GP really is the most exciting race on water. We are a global championship that features national teams racing in short, intense races at iconic venues around the world. And our ambition is really to be the world's most purpose-driven and sustainable global sports platform, racing for a better sport and racing for a better planet. And it's in our DNA, and it cuts across everything that we do. And really that also goes through to kind of how we choose where we host our events, and really kind of putting our purpose through everything that we do through the event locations and that due diligence process. And that starts right at the beginning. We obviously have criteria around technical requirements, our ability to kind of host our racing, to have good sailing conditions, as well as you can imagine around financial contributions from the host city to allow us to deliver those events, as well as the commercial attractiveness and kind of the market appeal of the host venues. But importantly, we also look at the purpose perspective and kind of how these cities align with Sail GP values and how they can kind of help us accelerate the change to clean energy throughout the world. And really, we kind of categorize those as the three key pillars around how these cities align with helping us become a better sport, a better planet, and a better business. And these kind of criteria include availability of biofuels and kind of green grid availability at the kind of our event sites, as well as does the city have kind of a net zero target? Are they a part of C40 Cities network? Are they part of other kind of metrics and associations that help them showcase their kind of leader in sustainability, as well as kind of equal rights for women, as well and human rights concerns. And so really what SailGP does is complete a holistic review of our host city. So not just from the capability of hosting our event, as well as of the commercial attractiveness, but also from the purpose point of view. And that happens at every stage of the process, from kind of initial screening at the very beginning to kind of, again, as we get to a short list of cities that we want to contract with, as well as prior to signature. And what we see is that that's really important for our stakeholders. So not just externally to our partners, to our teams and our athletes, but also to our staff. You know, we are, as I said, ambitious to be the most purpose-driven and most sustainable sports platform in the world. And as you can imagine, our workforce are very proud to be part of that organization. And so this kind of due diligence process allows us to showcase that we are living through and breathing our values, and kind of the decisions we're making as a league in terms of where we're racing, kind of how we expand the league, is kind of made on really rational decision making. That helps us kind of, again, become the most purpose-driven league in the world.
When did you start with that kind of practice? Is it like a long term or just a few years ago?
Yeah, so pretty much, I think, again, the context of the room is we're currently in our third season of SailGP, and that's finishing in next month in May, before then kicking off into season 4, our fourth edition of the series in June 2023. And we implemented this process at the beginning of season 3, so just last year, just recently, again, as we became more sophisticated as an organization, we realized that actually we can do better, and we can do things that we can do to keep improving our operations, our processes, to ensure that, again, to help us achieve that ambition of being the most purpose-driven and sort of sustainable property in the world. And we've actually, for season 3 to season 4, we've increased the number of criteria, I think from 12 criteria to now 18 criteria, again, across those 3 pillars of better sport, better planet, and better business. And so we're always continuously trying to think of ways that we can improve our processes as part of that bidding process. And again, still developing a world-class calendar of iconic events, hopefully racing in kind of the most sustainable and iconic cities in the world.
We'll talk about the innovative system that you are now taking part in SailGP, but I now want to hear from Mr. Globan. What do you think, how can sport properties leverage their commitment to sustainable practices in a destination to attract and retain sponsors, attendees and participants?
Well, I'm an economist, and when we do economic impact studies for sports events, it's all about measuring the consumption. It's all about measuring the long-term effects of investment. So really measurable economic variables. Of course, we need to include social impacts there. They're less easy or more difficult to measure, but it's possible. There is the whole concept now of social return on investment. And now, very recently, we also have the inclusion of environmental aspects in measuring these impacts of sports events. On the first glance, this economic benefits may sound like they're the opposing goal to environmental sustainability. Why is that? Well, because in all economic impact studies, when we try to put a number on what will be economic benefit of hosting a mega event, it's all about the masses of people. You want to maximize the number of people coming. You want to have hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of visitors.
More better. Yeah.
Yes. You have hundreds of athletes, their teams around them, coaches, the whole entourage. And if you can maximize that number, you can maximize the economic benefit, because they will spend more, they will eat more in the restaurants, they will pay more money to hotels, etc. And basically the problem with that, they create a lot of waste. If you go to any big event, football match or any other sport event, and when you wait for the whole arena or stadium to empty, you see mountains of waste. And in mega sports events, this multiplies even further. So the problem with that, if you want to marry the two concepts, environmental sustainability and economic benefits, you need to try to use the positives of environmental sustainability from the economic point of view. How can we do that? Where, for example, by using renewable energy, you can cut the cost of holding sports events. you can reduce those energy bills that you have. You can reduce the cost of waste disposal. If you promote how you are pushing the environmental sustainability agenda, you can try to attract more big sponsors that are all about that in recent times. So improve the revenue side as well. So basically what I would like to emphasize today is that environmental sustainability and economic benefits are not substitutes, they are complements.
Mm-hmm. Do you have some successful examples of sport tourism events that are what are you talking about, that have prioritized environmental sustainability while also generating economic benefits?
Right, so now in recent times there is no bid for a big sport event that doesn't include environmental sustainability. It's like it's expected. It's almost impossible to get a hosting of the big event without that component. Now we see with Euro 2024 Germany put like this green side of things like at the forefront. They said it would be the cleanest, the greenest Euro championship ever. But there are a lot of examples. The Australian Open, Boston Marathon, the Winter Olympics like in South Korea, they used for their electricity the maximum amount of wind energy, solar energy. They gave excess food that was left after the event to charity. They promoted using bikes, public transport, so it's free if you have a ticket. For an event, you're free to use the public transport. So many different aspects. For example, in Boston, you get a bike valet, like that waits you, like when you drive a car in front of a hotel. They created a situation where you drive your bike to the event, then a person takes care of your bike, so you don't have to worry about who's going to get stolen, etc. So a lot of interesting examples. I think many of them we will touch later on.
Yeah, of course. Ms. Pak, in Slovenia you have also great examples. We talked before. Maybe you can share some of them with us.
Well, hello to everyone. It's great to be here at this important conference. Well, sports tourism is definitely one of the fastest growing segments in tourism, and in Slovenia it is one of our 5 key tourism products because of course, many benefits. Today we are speaking about environmental sustainability, and I would like to share with you maybe 5 messages how to embrace all these efforts. First of all, we have to be aware of the power of the sports tourism. There is a lot of passion here, a lot of pride, a lot of power. We heard yesterday our ministers. Sports tourism can really raise awareness of the environmental sustainability, of the reduction of carbon footprint, and of protecting our nature that we love so much. So I think this can be one of the key drivers of environmental sustainability. The second message would be that we can't talk about really sustainable event without having sustainable strategy at the destination level. The real strategy. I mean, in Slovenia, the sustainability is at the core of all our activities, development and promotional. It is the core of our strategy, our I Feel Slovenia brand, and all tourism products, including sports tourism, have to be in line with that, in line with the vision, which is in Slovenia, green boutique Slovenia, with smaller footprint and higher value for all. And to realize that strategy, we developed a concrete national program called Green Scheme of Slovenia Tourism that was recognized also by ETC as a good practice. It is, in fact, a certification program for destinations, for accommodation, natural parks, agencies, restaurants, and we also developed green guidelines for sport events. In that way, sport event organizers have really possibilities to make green, sustainable events, to cooperate with sustainable-oriented providers. Then the third message would be that destinations have to support the sport events only if they developed and developed or followed the green standards. In Slovenia, as I mentioned before, we developed green standards, green guidelines, so it is a platform for all event organizers to use. We have KPIs in 6 areas. And every year we publish public tender for international event organizers. Among criteria, there are KPIs from these guidelines, green guidelines, and we support then event organizers which follow that guideline. So you can't support, I mean, you can't support the events without that they follow these standards. And then my fourth message, we should talk more maybe about joint events. Because if maybe 2-3 destinations join forces, organize event together, then the burden on the destination is smaller. And maybe last, we shall appoint ambassadors to share this awareness for sustainability, for protecting the nature. In Slovenia, as you know, as Minister yesterday said, we cooperate with our top athletes like Luka Doncic, Tadej Pogačar, Primož Roglič, Janja Garnbret, the climber, and so on. And they help us promote sustainability, protecting the nature. I think, because here we have a lot of passion, a lot of pride and everything, and influence on the younger generations, that can be a really effective way how to raise awareness towards sustainability.
We said we'll talk about case studies, so I want to know about Planica. You said that's a great example story.
Yes. Planica, definitely, we had in last year many European and World Championships, including a Nordic World Ski Championship that was held three months ago. The organizer prepared the action plan. I have also here with me the Green Planica Action Plan with 6 areas of measures, 20 objectives and 60 KPIs on how to organize the event in a very sustainable way. And they appointed a strategic group to monitor the implementation, the organization, and they partner also with NGOs like Umanotera and like Climate Partner. So they then follow the realization of the KPIs. And there was a lot of partnership with local organizations. In this case, for example, with local school, eco school, they made a project how to educate fans to act sustainably. They put a commitment on sustainable behavior on the websites and many other things. A lot of measures were also on the area of mobility, transportation. They add new, for example, new transportation train routes to the venue and bus routes. And participants with the tickets, they get the free transport and so on. Many of different measures.
So it sounds great. Mr. Muela, colors of Real Betis are green, and you have a brand, Forever Green. Could you tell us a little bit more about it? I think it's in a topic, it will be really interesting to know that.
Okay, perfect. First of all, good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure for us to be here and have the opportunity to share with all of you the project and the program Forever Green. Forever Green is the strategy that we have as club to be responsible with the huge power we think we have as a sports club, and also because we really think that our fan base, and I'm sure that all your fan bases and all your sport and athletes that practice your sports are really involved with that, and they have their club, their sport as reference. So if they do something, if they start to mobilize and to inform about something, they will take that into account. This is the huge power we think we have, and since we think we have this responsibility, we start working more than two years ago. We launched Forever Green, and since then we have done around more than 80 actions around our events, but also different events in outside our sports environment, we may say, mainly based in 5 specific areas. 2 of them, because they are crucial for the sector: mobility and recycling. Thomas referred before, all the sport events generates huge amounts of weights, and about mobility, it's crazy, and this is one of our main challenges that we have. But also we work on another area, which is nature, which means, okay, let's do something, let's do some actions to have an impact in the nature that we have around the stadium, around the city, and this is like volunteer cleaning with our fans, or reforestation projects, or even we have a urban orchid, an ecological one, of course. And also we have what we call climate change. This is the area in which we try to spread the message of the emergency that we all are facing as community and as society. This event is part of that area. And finally, for us, is crucial the club area. What that means? Okay, all that message that you are spreading around the world, please start at home. You need to start doing your homework, try to reduce your carbon footprint, but not only. And this is why we take it very seriously, and we are trying our best to reduce each process, each activity that we have in the club around a game, or even the day by day in the office, which is also really important. And we are giving steps with that, also taking into account the potential that we have with our fan base on our match day, which is crucial. And yeah, we are trying our best in this regard. Sometimes, I always say a mistake, because so many things that we tried didn't work at the first time. So don't be frightened. Go ahead.
You can do mistakes. It's important that you do it.
Of course. Yeah. This is the thing. You have to start. Mm-hmm. If you don't start moving because you're scared, because you are going to fail,
do something wrong,
or your fan base will tell to you, why are you focusing on that and not on the field?
Yeah. So
because we need to be there.
How does the audience respond to this? How does your fans respond to this philosophy? I heard that you are a really likable club and everything in Spain. Because of this, yeah.
We have several readings of it, because it is true that for them, as I have mentioned before, this is not a priority. They want the team to win.
Yeah, of course.
This is the priority. But at the same time, we really feel that there is a special connection with a fan base. We feel like they are really proud that their club is doing other things, because we always say that Betis is not only a club, it's a way of living, it's a way of feeling. And since, I don't know if you have heard about it, but we have like a slogan which is "Viva el Betis man que pierda." That means go Betis even if you lose.
Okay.
That for us is like a leitmotif to go to those social emergencies that we have. Mm-hmm. We need to be with those who are facing the most important problems, who have more difficulties. This is why we feel, okay, we are emphatic, we have solidarity. And from that feeling, we start thinking on that because we really feel like the climate change is the most urgent problem that we have as community and as world as is, nowadays. So I think there is a balance, and according, for example, to the social media, we realize that we don't have, even if social media is full of haters, we don't have so many bad reactions. And
Everybody like Real Betis.
more or less, yeah, more or less we feel like they finally they are proud and they feel, okay, that represents me. So, and even players, for example, for us it's also very important that the players who are crucial also to spread the message, they also say, okay, I'm also in this club because they are doing this kind of thing. Because I'm also a social guy, and I also
Social influencer, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for them it's also an added value, and I think it works for our fan base, for the sponsors, for the institutions that we have around, local, regional, or national. So I think it's positive. In every level.
So we'll come to the sponsors. I want to hear from Ms. Chorak. In your opinion, in what way sport events can contribute to sustainable development, tourism development, and do you have also some good examples?
Yeah, okay, thank you for the questions. But first of all, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for staying at this panel. Because yesterday we were talking more about the economic contribution of events, of tourism and sports tourism as well. But nowadays, I think, as you said, climate changes are really one of the really biggest problems in the world. So environmental sustainability is really very important. I am glad that in our country we adopted a strategy of sustainable tourism development, but not only tourism development. Sustainability is the orientation of the strategy of the economy as a whole. So it is also very important. Thinking about and discussing about sport tourism, it is important, and yesterday it was mentioned for a few times, that it is really helping our destinations to extend the season. In majority of Mediterranean countries we develop summer tourism, and this is really making pressures on the environment. And with organizing events, different sport events, we are impacting and we are trying to expand the season, meaning also that the job opportunities will be more, local agriculture and local production will be more involved in if you have season of 6 months and not 2.5 months.
And the pressure on the environment will be less.
And the pressure on the environment, yeah. And it is also that UN several years ago also promoted launch material when it shows the relations of sports tourism and 17 sustainable development goals. So we know developing sport tourism, that this is helping local communities and tourism as economic activity as a whole. But then the problem usually comes when you need to implement the strategies. So this is kind of a problem. But first, as we have in the audience people coming from sports and people from tourism, in Croatia, I think we have a very good basis for even better collaboration between these two sectors than we have at the moment, because Croatia is divided on 21 counties, and on a county level, we have established tourism boards or DMO organizations, but we have local sport organizations as well. So I think, you know, when bidding for a new sport competitions, it will be very good to have a little bit more collaboration. It means that tourism need to know a little bit more about technology of different sports. It is not, you know, same if you are organizing competition in judo or in basketball, it's a different thing. And then also for the people that are engaged in sport, they need to know more about how to talk with tourism to engage a little bit more travel agencies that can help them, you know, in everything that is connected with tourism. And every athlete coming to a destination is really a tourist. So they are from the, I would say, we need to collaborate a little bit more, and I believe that this will help us. And of course, coming to the environmental sustainability, we need to do more in organizing more oriented, we are saying eco-friendly competitions, which are really not easy. In my sport, we are organizing judo competitions, and we started with measuring carbon footprint, and this is one of the problems. Really give us quite a lot of challenges.
Why?
Why? Because data are not arranged as it needs to be for the calculation, and we all need the help of special agencies. In Croatia, we have two agencies that are really helping us in that, and also a Croatian Olympic Committee joined the One Erasmus project with the other 17 Olympic committees in Europe. So the idea is in 2 years to educate climate officers, because, you know, once a time you can commission a special agency to help you in calculating the carbon footprint, but you cannot really do it every 2 or 3 years. So the people need to be educated, and, you know, to get the skills. It is not so easy.
It's not a short-term project. It's
not
a long-term,
short-term. It's a long-term. Yeah. And just to mention one thing more, because I'm not sure I really agree with some of the colleagues. Environmental sustainability is sometimes really in a conflict with economic goals. We have to be aware. Because in sports, we always say we need to attract more spectators, we need to have more competitors. More spectators and more competitors, meaning a bigger carbon footprint.
Definitely.
And, you know, race to zero, neutral, for me, it's really a long way.
Yeah, but sometimes maybe to find a nice way between both things. So, question for everybody. What do you think? Should environmental and social also impact have any sort of influence on the sporting results of the event competition? Mr. Globan, what do you think?
Does it have an impact on sporting result?
Yes.
Not sure what way you mean.
In a way that it ranks the sport event better or worse.
Okay. Yeah. I think nowadays the public image of an event is extremely important. Qatar had big efforts to try to get a good image.
Yes.
But had a lot of issues with that for obvious reasons.
Good example, definitely.
Yeah. Now, basically, if you want to have a good image, especially in, let's call it, Western media, you have to put a lot of emphasis on environment protection and sustainability. Big issue now is carbon offsetting, which means basically we are all aware that any sport event will create a carbon footprint, okay? Now we have the World Cup in football in North America, in Canada, US, and Mexico. Let's face it, the teams will not ride a bus or ride a bike to travel from the west to the east coast. All of these teams will fly all the time, so a lot of pollution there. So what hosts need to do, they need to try to offset that with some active policies, like with reforestation, planting those trees, or whatever they may use. Use recyclable material. Try to, on the stadiums, not use plastic cups or bottles. Use recyclable paper type of cups, etc. Low-flow toilets, low-flow faucets to reduce water consumption. This is what you need to do. But the main point is you need to communicate that clearly. You need to put that at the forefront so that basically, what are you doing? You are communicating clearly what are your intentions. You are dedicated to that goal, but also you are one way or another educating people who are, a lot of them, still skeptic. Is this important? Do we really need that? And so on. So what basically, what the Commonwealth Games, like in Melbourne or Manchester, had a very, very good example, that they had these wide public media campaigns to try to push these environmental goals and talk about it. Have workshops for the children to educate them on what can they do in their small circle, in their lives, to push these goals and ideas. I think it's important today.
Ms. Turek, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wanted just to add that the studies already conducted on carbon footprint of the events really show that about 80% of carbon footprint come from the travel, come from aviation. So what can we do as a host? We can only work on really reducing this 20%, and it is not easy. And even on the case of the competition that we organize, it costs us more. So it costs us reducing plastics, you know, no paper, food donation, for example, and so on. So this is about 20% of more costs in organizing really a sustainable event. So, you know, there are really many issues involved.
Anybody else maybe on this sports ranking?
Well, from my point of view now, at this moment, at least in football, we are far from something like that. We are really far. But at the same time, if a club has problems, for example, on governance topic, they may be sanctioned, and they will be punished. Not.
It's official. They will really be punished because if they are not having.
In terms of governance,
yes.
Of course. If they are transparent, if they don't fulfill things like, okay, if you don't have a financial sustainability plan, if you are not doing your homework in terms of being sustainable in terms of financial, you may have problems, as we have had last year, because we were in a very difficult economic situation because of pandemic and because of having the stadium empty for 2 years, because our fan base is huge and is a very important source of funding. So we have problems to inscribe the players. If you don't have enough sustainability in terms of financial, you will have problems. Why not? Maybe regulation can also...
For environment, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Mr. Dwarman, could you explain the innovative system I was talking about before you use in terms of ranking and contributing sustainability? I think it's really interesting, yeah.
Perfect, thank you very much. Yeah, I guess, as I previously mentioned, at SailGP, our purpose is really about putting environmental and social sustainability into everything that we do, in the hope that by using our platform for good, we can inspire change across the globe through our athletes, through our teams, and through our fans. And as Nevena pointed out, we actually do believe that environmental and social aspects can actually impact the results on the field. And that's why we created a world first in what we call the Impact League. So that is basically a world first initiative to make sustainability essential to the fabric of sport, and also reigniting the competitive nature of our athletes that exist in our league. And what the Impact League is basically a second leaderboard that runs concurrently alongside our season championship. And that basically, the Impact League tracks the positive actions that our teams are doing at the events that they're racing at, and how they're using their voice to reduce, to kind of accelerate inclusivity in sailing, but also help, again, transition the world to a world powered by nature. And at the end of the season, then, we have 2 podiums, what we call a podium for the planet, so the Impact League winner, who was then crowned alongside the season champion, the champions of the racing on the water. And that Impact League really kind of has a set of criteria that each team operates against, and we assess them at every event and give them points towards. And again, throughout the season, they're trying to accumulate as many points for the Impact League, again, to be crowned, I guess, the champions of the planet, which kind of runs alongside them trying to win the championship on the racing as well. And those criteria really range from a wide range of criteria, from pioneering new technologies on clean energy, kind of how do they operate their team bases, how do they kind of clean their boats, how do they operate as a team more sustainably, to kind of reduce, increasing the amount of plant-based food they consume as a team, as well as kind of removing single-use plastics, to things like how are they using their voice in the local communities. Are they going out to the local sailing communities, local sailing clubs, local schools, and kind of, again, showcasing the power of sport through SailGP and kind of our platform, and using their voice for good. And what we've also found is obviously, as you can imagine, we've had the luxury of having many athletes in presence over the last 2 days. Look, athletes are inherently competitive, so you give them something to aim for, a kind of second leaderboard.
They will go for it.
Exactly. And so what we're seeing is actually they're taking it as seriously, the Impact League, as well as kind of the racing on the water. And so you see this competitiveness, and that was really kind of the ethos of the Impact League, was to try and get the competitive juices going to ensure that actually we're using our athletes. And we've talked a lot about using ambassadors over the last 2 days, and look, they're one of our greatest assets in the league, right? Our athletes are the ones telling the stories, they're the ones with the incredible achievements and kind of stories to date that we can kind of showcase. And if we can then use that from a sustainability angle, then that's amazing. And just in corresponding to kind of how that impacts their on-the-field performance, so SailGP, for those of you in the room who aren't aware, we're pretty unique as a property in that you don't get to race on the F50, which is the boat that we use, unless you're at a SailGP event. So we don't have spares around the world. We're still kind of pretty much in our infancy at that stage. So you only get to be on an F50 and train on an F50 when you're at a SailGP event that has kind of 1 day training, sometimes 2 days training. And how we incentivize the sustainability angle is the Impact League winner from the previous events gets additional training time at the following event. So hopefully in the sense that we're incentivizing our athletes to be the most sustainable, most purpose-driven athletes that they can be, in the hope that they get more additional training time on the water, which then means they can have a more chance of being better on the racing water and actually winning the championship. And really interestingly, just a few more comments from me. We conducted a survey on our athletes on the Impact League, and it's making a real impact. We found that 80% of our athletes found that the Impact League has actually changed the way they behave at our events and beyond kind of what they do in their daily lives. So like I said, whether that's kind of thinking about clean energy more in their daily lives, or kind of thinking more about plant-based foods, or sustainable travel. A lot of our teams now are kind of not using public transport at all and actually using bikes or scooters to get from the hotel to our pit lane and back again. And 2/3 of our athletes said that they believe the Impact League has the potential to change how our fans think about sustainability and kind of how our fans are thinking about sustainability and how they use that in their daily lives. And then lastly, just the last really interesting percentage of fact from me was 84% of our athletes think that other sports should be doing an Impact League or similar in their sports and in their properties. So I think, really this is a call to kind of athletes, other rights holders in the room to kind of think about ways that we can collaborate to kind of share what we've done and what we've learned from the Impact League, and now hopefully you can kind of utilize that in your properties and your leagues going forward. Again, using that as a tool to help accelerate change around the world.
So there is a will, so we just have to impact that in all our organizations and everything. So let's talk about sponsorships now. Mr. Muela, when it comes to sponsorship, at what extent do sponsors have to be sustainable for Real Betis?
Well, at this point, what is happening with us is that since we have Forever Green program, we feel like the sponsors has the sponsors we had before that, they are starting thinking on doing actions against climate change. They are starting to think, okay, why we don't start doing something in this regard? But at the same time, we are also being attractive to additional sponsorships who were close to the world of football. But since we have this other topic besides football, they are getting close to the club through Forever Green. My view, and this is something that I have also heard so many times in the last years, is that sponsorships are more and more around values each year than around visibility. Yes, mere visibility. Yes, it goes beyond that visibility to be as main sponsor in the shirt, or being in the UTB in the pitch. Is different. So I think it facilitates long-term relationships with them, because it's based on a common project, and not only if you have a good performance in terms of competition, or not only if they look good in the screen at that moment. Is different. So my feeling, being optimistic, as always I try, is that it's a new opportunity to generate income, to generate stronger relationships. And I really feel like since it is in the market, it's in the agenda right now, it's going to be something more and more demanded and requested by the sponsorship. I think Mr. Mario in the previous panel was also saying that, that it's going to be crucial for investors. So I think the environment is really propositive and really good for all these efforts that we are all doing.
Ms. Chorak, as you are also the president of the Croatian Judo Federation and vice president of the Croatian Olympic Committee, what are your experience with the sponsors of these kinds of events? Is it a little bit greenwashing, or we care about that sponsors are really green?
I would say still that for our sponsors, the visibility
is the main
of the competition is the main thing, yeah. Okay, now sustainability comes, but I would say that it also adds to a kind of promotional value, because, you know, if we are first at the Grand Prix Zagreb 2 years ago, when we started with sustainability issues, then, you know, when you are first in something that it really catches the TV and other
that
media.
first time, yeah.
So yeah, for the first time, so it was that. But I would say still that we need more sponsors that are aware about the need of environmental sustainability. What is good that our International Judo Federation is also working on evaluation of all the competitions in the tour. So in Zagreb, as a host, we also evaluated according to the checklist. You know what? Do our hotels have a sustainability policy? You know, how we organize our transfers? You know, what materials do we use to clean the mats, and so on. So there are kind of list. According to the list, you know, as a host, we also evaluate it. So for the next events, you know, the sustainability and everything we do really counts. So I would say that, you know, from step to step, everything will come. But still, as someone working so many years in tourism, climate changes are really affecting whatever, not only sport infrastructure and the athletes. So many competitions are delayed. You know, especially during winter, there's almost impossible to organize, you know, some competitions and so on. So we all need really to start act really quick. And this is also the message from IOC, from UN. Yeah, it is really not easy. But you know, when you start doing, you can ask, you can see there are quite a lot of best examples. You know, Google is working, so everybody have. I just say, in a sport, but as well as tourism, we need a little bit push. And when the ministry is asking for something, maybe sustainability items should become prerequisites. So you apply for something if you are, I don't know, gender equality, sustainability issues, and so on.
So there should be a list,
There
maybe.
should be a kind of list, yeah.
So, yeah, Mr. Globan, please.
I agree with Madam Chorak that in Croatia, probably we're not there yet with the awareness. I think there are a lot of research done that shows that basically environmental awareness, sustainability issues, is closely connected to the economic development level. In Croatia, is catching up with the EU in a lot of things, and economically, I'm happy to say as well. We are now at 73% of EU average in terms of standard of living, GDP per capita. Just 5 or 6 years ago, we were around 60%, so we are closing the gap, and by the end of this decade, data shows that probably will be over 80% of the EU average. So with that, things will change. The awareness will change, the companies will start to change. What I'm happy to see that now Croatian government has this project of a big investment in sporting infrastructure. So I've been working closely with them, with the Ministry of Tourism and Sport, to try to develop and establish criteria, economic, social, but also they included environmental criteria. What the cities need to do and show that if they want public funds from the government, how would this investment improve economic side of things, social side of things, and environmental side of things. So things are changing to that direction.
So, Ms. Park, what do you think about this topic? And maybe we can open the topic of greenwashing. How to be successful in these terms of environmental sustainability and not to be called the greenwashers in the same way?
Yes, that's a very important question. I would say many destinations and many providers claim to be green without proper strategy behind, without proper standards or tools, and maybe just because it's trend, and this is very wrong, of course. So to avoid greenwashing, I would say that we need concrete, sustainable strategy. I mentioned before the case of Slovenia. We developed a green scheme of Slovenia tourism with really concrete measures and comprehensive one that embraces all the efforts in a country for all the providers. So we need concrete strategy, we need concrete standards, we need concrete KPIs, measurements. We have to collect data and measure the data. This is the main thing. And the key here is transparency. Tourism destinations and providers and sport properties should be very transparent about their sustainable activities. They should disclose information about their goals, about the activities and results, even if they are not so good and they still need some improvements, but they have to disclose them. And maybe it is important also that they back up their sustainability green claims with the credible evidence. And sometimes it is good to partner with institutions, independent organizations. Before I mentioned Planica, the case, they partner with NGOs like Humanotera, Climate Partner, that they then evaluated the results. That's very important. And it's also important that those practices, sustainability practices, should be consistent. Not just one-time job, but really to implement them consistently. And a very important thing is that the event organizers should cooperate with experts so that the event can be organized more efficient. And again, a good practice with Planica. In Slovenia, they appointed really this strategic group that was together with the planning the Green Planica event and also when evaluating the event.
Anybody else on the greenwashing topic? Yeah.
Well, I would add to those. Yeah, it is fully true that we need to have experts close because we know about sports. We don't know about, at least 2 years ago, that happened to us. We have also an agency that is supporting us in this topic. But for me, it's crucial also to involve the employees. We need to, it's working, I think it's working in Real Betis, that we have several meetings with representatives of the different areas involved in all the process that we have. Facilities, human resources, communication, marketing, all of them, they need to know why we are doing this. Because in the day by day, they just care about their task. And you are coming with an additional task. They have to report this, they have to add this to the process. So if you don't have a very committed pedagogical task with them, it will be really difficult. You need to have them on board because otherwise it's going to be just the picture and then the greenwashing. This for me, it's a key for being really coherent, which is crucial. And also I would add that the argument, internal argument for those in marketing or those in the board of directors, please take into account that you have a huge risk if you don't do it well. If they catch you,
it's going to be bad.
and you don't, and you will have financial consequence, maybe legal consequence, engagement consequence, brand consequence. So you need to be very persistent, little by little, being emphatic as well, but also to be clear in the situation.
Transparency, definitely. So are there any questions maybe for our panelists? Okay, you can think about a little bit more about it. We're coming to the end of this discussion. Mr. Globen, at the end, maybe some conclusion how to compare and have an economic successful event and environmental sustainability event. How to do it? What do you think?
Again, at the first glance, these are competing goals, objectives. I agree it may be difficult to try to find a common solution to both of those, but I think it's inevitable. There are no alternatives. So I don't think it's productive to think of ways it's not possible to do it. What are we doing currently? When I say we globally, all of the sports events and all of the institutions that are accepting the bids and decide who will get the sporting event, I think they are moving in the right direction. They are putting all those environmental sustainability goals as an imperative, not as a possibility or like an added bonus. It's a must. I think it's a good thing. And I think with that awareness, we need more education from the youngest age. And connecting to the topic of greenwashing, if you're falsely claiming something that you are the greenest or whatever, the most sustainable product or invent or whatever, and it's not true, then the biggest harm is that you're undermining confidence and trust of the people. And when you lose trust, we had a lot of problems with that during the pandemic. When people lose trust, then it's a very, very bad thing. It may have long-term negative consequences in trusting the science or, in this sense, the environmental impact, etc. So we need to be very careful with that, and we need to be transparent and basically speak the truth. And this is the only way forward, I think.
Thank you. Ms. Jurek, you're not that optimistic, I think, when it comes to...
No, but, we are finishing this panel and I would like to stay positive.
Okay.
So I think that it is very good to use what I usually say, educational power of sport. So, through sport we can educate children and young ones. So whenever we have like preparations of national teams somewhere, we can spend, the coaches can spend some time in educating young ones, what to do in their everyday life. So that, it's not always everything connected with sport. So what to do. When we are organizing competitions, these are events, but still in events you always have, some breaks where you can use 10-15 minutes to put a promotional video or just, make some kind of examples and show what sustainability really means. Not to use the plastic bottles. So, okay, I'm glad we have now the glass
one, yeah.
But the young ones need to have their bottles with them, so to be sure that, and in majority of European countries you can really have a tap water that you can use. So giving small examples during the events, during the preparations, I think will really means a lot and will help. So, sport is really a universal tool and we have to use it in promoting more awareness about the planet. If we are not acting, the planet can really change quickly.
Ms. Pak, main challenges for Slovenia in the future, what do you think in this topic?
I would say, as also speaker said before, cooperation is the key, transparency is the key, consistency. So we should elaborate further on KPIs, measurement, and be really consistent.
Mr. Dviarmen, main challenges for SailGP in the future, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think as many people in this panel have mentioned, and over the last 2 days, is really, I think, globally as an industry, we are still focusing very much on those metrics like broadcast, like visitation, economic impact. And really, kind of, I think what we want to see is actually, for us actually internally, is how are we tracking in terms of long-term legacy and changing behaviors at the host cities that we're racing? So how do we inspire and kind of engage with the local city, with the local stakeholders, to make it switch to a way that it actually becomes more sustainably focused and operates its events more sustainably, and kind of how can we be part of that journey? I think, look, the reality for us is, you know, we've grown exponentially as a league. We've gone from 5 events in 2019 to 8 events in 2022 to now kind of delivering an event of 12 series in a space of 13 months. So inevitably that comes with an expansion of our emissions, our footprint. But equally, we think there's a lot of opportunity there again to kind of make a real impact in the cities that we race in, as well as kind of working together with our host venue partners to think about what other KPIs can we start thinking about as part of these contracts. Right now, probably 30% of our contracts probably have a visitation KPI, so whether that's kind of bringing in domestic travelers from outside the city or international travelers. And really, we're kind of interested and kind of very keen to work with our venue partners to understand how does that change in the future, as obviously, as you say, you know, the crisis doesn't go away anytime soon, and kind of how do we think about more regenerative travel or kind of other aspects that city may be able to help us kind of accelerate that change to a much cleaner world in the future.
Thank you. And Mr. Nuela, the future for Real Betis in this environmental sustainability case, you are building a stadium, a new stadium. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well,
will it be environmental sustainable?
Yeah, well, we are under this process, rebuilding the stadium. The aspiration and the goal and what we are trying is to make it as sustainable as possible. The good news for Evergreen is that the full board of directors, all the decision makers, I really feel like they have this feeling like we need to be really sustainable. This is part of our brand. This is part of what we want to do. And also we are building a new training facility. So since we arrived with Forever Green in the right moment, because now I really feel like this feeling that this Forever Green is spread in the club, in every area, and that makes them at least try to consider the consequences of these constructions, and also to see the potential of being differential in this regard. The potential of, okay, we have this commitment as club, let's assume it in this main, we may say, elements for the club, as is the stadium, which is the soul of the we may say, of the club, and the facilities for training. And it's all the architects, on all the workers on this design are taking into account the environmental criteria. So
when it will be finished?
The first phase for the facilities, for the training facilities, will be finished in June, hopefully.
Okay.
And the rebuilding of the stadium, because we are going to rebuild parts of it and one of them fully, it will start hopefully again in June in 2024.
Okay, we'll come to visit and see what did you do. Thank you very much. Please give a great applause for our panelists. If there is no questions, I will give the stage and mic to my colleague Ivan now. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Neven, and thank to all the dear panelists. Please don't leave us. In a few minutes, we will be ready for the final ceremony. Thank you. It is my pleasure to invite Mr. Ion Vilku, okay, Director of the UNWTO Affiliate Member Department, to present the conclusions of this Congress. Mr. Vilku, you're more than welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Secretary of State, Director of Croatian National Tourist Board, dear representative of affiliate members, distinguished speakers, moderators, panelists, dear friends. We are coming to the end of this long-awaited Congress, which for 2 days has provided us the framework for a very comprehensive discussion on sport tourism. And at this moment of trying to wrap up on the debate that took place yesterday and this morning, I confess that I feel very encouraged for the shared sensation that we have enjoyed an extremely fruitful and dynamic Congress. I would like to start, first of all, by highlighting the approach under which we decided to organize, to structure and to organize a debate in this Congress. And as you saw, we have opted for establishing the crucial topic of the sustainability as the guiding line of all the topics and the panels. And it was, from the very beginning, clearly underlined by the title of the Congress, Sport and Tourism United for Sustainability. And I think that we all agree that it was a good decision, it was the right option, which provided us an optimal conceptual framework and which will allow us to have outcomes very much anchored in the sensitivity and the concern of the society, and therefore extremely relevant. And regarding this key aspect of the approach of the Congress, I would like to underline that the commitment of the Croatian host, of the Minister of Tourism and Sport, Nikolina Brujanic, of all her team, with this bet on sustainability, of course, in full alignment with UNWTO, but it's important for me to underline this approach of our host, which allowed us to have a very topical outcome. Another key point that I think we should underline at the end of this Congress is the format, is the fact that the participation had brought together the whole sport tourism ecosystem, and it was very important because it allowed us to have different perspectives over the important topic we have discussed. The perspective, first of all, of the government, of the public sector, through the high-level official participation, but also through the very consistent participation of important leading destination management organizations. Of course, also the perspective, the much-needed perspective of the private sector, through the voice of executive and representative of global, regional, and local entities, which are playing a vital role in the tourist sector as well as in the sport industry. And of course, also the perspective of true driving force in sport tourism, such as the federations, the sport event organizer, the national and European Olympic committees, and so on. And of course, also very important, the participation, the very valuable perspective of great athletes that best impersonate the values of sport and that serve as great ambassadors of their countries and of their destination. So within this context, regarding the concept, the format, and the participation, the discussion carried out offered us information, reflection, proposal, project, concrete examples, and inspiring best practices on extremely relevant topics, on the main challenges that the sport tourism is called to face at global, national, and local level. Also on the structural changes that occur regarding the behavior and the preference of the consumer that have been triggered by the pandemic and by the current risk. Also, the imperative of elaboration and upgrade of strategy as a sine qua non condition to be able to take full advantage of the sport tourism potential. Also, very concrete and tangible benefits for destination. Those destinations very committed toward developing sport tourism with a particular focus on the positive impact of hosting sport events. And finally, I would like to mention the topic of the window of political opportunity for the tourist sector and, of course, for the component of sport tourism that we have within the current context to improve the position of tourism as a priority in the political agenda of the government, precisely because of the awareness triggered by the experience of the pandemic when it was so visible the importance of the tourist sector. And within this context of the so important topic that the Congress addressed, allow me to briefly mention some concrete messages that constituted somehow a common denominator of many of the interventions of our outstanding speakers and panelists. First, I would refer to the fact that achieving a sustainable development in the field of sport tourism requires clear and coherent strategies and policies, and that there is no room for improvisation. And in this regard, it's essential to count on collaboration mechanisms to ensure the smooth and efficient interaction between the ministries, all the ministries, specialized entities, and public and local stakeholders, which have prerogative in the area of tourism and of sport. And also, this much needed coordination and collaboration must include mechanisms to really engage with destination, with sport associations, and of course, with the private sector. It has been also widely discussed and addressed from different angles the issue of the impact of the organization of sport events for the destination, and I think that the common denominator of the intervention was that sport events clearly bring economic benefits across the entire value chain. And in this regard, destinations should pay attention to count on methodologies to accurately measure both direct and indirect spending associated with the organization of a specific event, also carefully analyze and improve their understanding on the consumption pattern related to sport tourism, which can help to improve the distribution of the direct and indirect benefit generated by the sport event among the stakeholders and among the businesses involved. And also, destination and organizers need to work to better assess and quantify the exposure facilitated by the organization of a big sport event. It was also addressed the aspect of the specialization of destination, as in most of the cases, sport activity, as we all know, requires specific infrastructure that can be built, but also specific natural conditions which a destination can have or not. With the message that this aspect must be carefully considered by destination when strategically planning their approach toward developing sport tourism, and that the result of such analysis could recommend the strategic option in favor of a clear specialization of a destination, for example, on a specific group of sport, of activity, or on a specific profile of sport events, big sport events, amateur sport events, and so on. Another message drawn from the debate was that the destination should bet on hosting sport events as powerful support for their positioning in the market, branding and promotion. In this regard, some key considerations must be considered. The destination must set in place a comprehensive strategy, marketing strategy that integrates sport events to be hosted in full alignment with the destination overall brand and image. And also that solid work must be done to try to accurately measure the return of the investment and the effort made, both in terms of economic impact and also in terms of brand reinforcement and future increase in tourist flows. Regarding the fact that when a destination hosts and sponsors at the same time an event, that destination assumes this double condition of sponsoring brand and host. And within our debates, it was underlined that in order to take full advantage of both mentioned conditions, the destination management organization must be in condition to develop in-house capacity, knowledge, and expertise to professionally work as a brand that sponsors the sport event, as well to count on own specialized structures like sport offices, and of course with staff that can ensure a swift coordination with the event organizer. Another important conclusion and message drawn from the discussion is that developing sport tourism could generate an extremely positive impact on the community health, as it contributes to encourage the practice of sport and healthy habits among the local population. Within the mentioned sustainability approach of this Congress, it was underlined that social and environmental aspects are becoming essential in the current stage. Successful sport tourism must adequately consider and entail the reduction or compensation of CO2 emissions, along with accurately measuring with active engagement, of course, of host, organizers, and sponsors. And of course, a supportive local community is a key factor to host a successful and at the same time sustainable sport event. Dear friend, this wrap-up would be incomplete without highlighting the enormous value of having the opportunity to organize this Congress in partnership with a host like Croatia, and of course with a host like this magnificent destination of Zadar. Because I am sure that you will all agree that we had the advantage of a host with an enormous knowledge on the subject. Knowledge and expertise accumulated over many years of professional, hard work, and well-deserved success. Croatia and this destination know a lot about how to successfully use sport in order to have an effective tourist promotion for many reasons that you all know, and I will not mention here. And during this Congress, all of us have been beneficiaries of coming into direct contact with the wealth of knowledge and expertise that Croatia can bring to the table through the many excellent panelists and participants from our host country. Therefore, I think this is the right moment to thank to the organizer and to convey our sincere congratulations to all the Croatian participants and to all the Croatian panelists and experts, because without this input, it would have been impossible to have such a consistent outcome. And finally, I would like to share with you a reflection. This closing is not the last moment of this Congress. From my perspective, from our perspective, is the first moment of a very important process, which would be the process of taking advantage of the rich discussion that took place here and to transform it into tangible result, into tangible products, guidelines and knowledge to be offered to our members, to the governments, and of course to the destination. We are very much committed with this effort. I've been talking previously with our Croatian friend, but also with many of the affiliate members participating in this Congress. So it is in our intention to produce and to share with you all within the next months some specific manuals, guidelines on topics that we saw that are of great interest. For example, on the topic of looking in a professionalized manner for sponsorship. And of course, in a more general topic of the essential step for a destination that aspire to position better in the field of sport tourism. We will be very much committed with this, and I underline this aspect because from UNWTO, we will stay in touch. We will make a very honest and consistent follow-up with all of you, with all of the participants, not only with the expert panelists and speakers, but also with the destination management organization participating, being affiliated to UNWTO or not, and we will keep you updated on this. And also, I would like to take advantage to encourage you to respond the two questionnaires that we shared with you, I think, through the application of the Congress, because it will be a very valuable input for us and very much taken into consideration. And also, let me share that starting from this Congress, we in UNWTO will focus even more our expansion strategy in targeting entities from the area of sport industry, precisely as an approach in line with our aspiration to reinforce sport tourism into the agenda of UNWTO, and we will proceed to create within the next few weeks a dedicated, a specialized working group of affiliated entities on sport tourism as an excellent framework to accompany us in this follow-up process that, as I mentioned, it's very important for us. And having said that, just let me mention that we have already received very solid candidatures to host the next Congress in 2025. It is in our intention to collect other candidatures during the next month and to make a formal announcement in October in the framework of our General Assembly. But the most important aspect is that I would like to underline that we see you all, we consider you all our partners to prepare from this very moment the future Congress. And I'm sure that this Congress we are finalizing today, the second, will offer us the very solid basis to address the next edition with all the chances to have an even more consistent outcome. And I finish here thanking once again to all of you. The Secretary General asked me once again on his behalf to express our gratitude to the Minister of Sport and Tourism, to Her Excellency Nicolina Brăjanic and her team for the wonderful work and the effort and the commitment with this topic and with this Congress. Also to the Croatian National Tourist Board, to the Director Christian Stanicic and his extraordinary team. I would like also, on behalf of the Secretary General, to thanks to all the local authorities and from the city of Zadar and from this province for the consistent support offered. And also, it's important to thank to allow me to thank to the UNWTO preparatory team, specifically also to the team from my department, from the affiliate member department, because during the last 6 months, all of them put sport tourism as the big priority in our daily activity. And the most important, to sincerely thank to and express our gratitude and appreciation to all of you, to our speakers, moderators, panelists, and to all the participants for this extremely active engagement in the discussion of this Congress. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Vilko, on your kind and inspiring words. Please welcome State Secretary and Minister of Tourism of the Republic of Croatia, Mr. Tonči Glavin. A final words from you.
Thank you very much, dear ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to apologize for my scratchy voice, but when you put sports and tourism together in a great conference, you know, sometimes that's what happens. Dear friends from UNWTO, dear Alessandra, dear Ion, dear Director of National Tourism Board, Christian, dear colleague, State Secretary Pavic, dear members of the delegations, Your Excellencies, all distinguished speakers, panelists, participants, it is a great pleasure and honor to address you as the closing remarks of this wonderful conference that we have had. You know, sports and tourism is an incredible combination for a country like Croatia. As you all know, we have unparalleled success as a sports nation considering our size and population, but needless to say that we produce some of the most amazing tourism results over our history, and of course we strongly believe that we will continue to do so. At the same time, as far as tourism, we're considered by many one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and we try to not only use that to brand ourselves that way, but we try to present ourselves to the world as a country of incredible people, great contributions to the mankind, innovations, and really unique place with a special story. This is why it's a great challenge for us to manage tourism and sports, but yet it's a challenge that was recognized, of course, at the highest levels. This is why tourism and sports is within one ministry, and it is one of our main focuses on the governmental level as well, I should say. It is great to remember and see all the things, all the investments that we're doing when it comes down to sport. In general, over the mandate of the current administration of President of Croatian government, Mr. Plenković, over the period of, say, the last 7 years or so, we have invested more than 166 projects and financed for tourism, for sports infrastructure in about an amount of 10 million euros. At the same time, over the past 5 years or so, we have invested or we have sponsored and produced over 100 great sports events in a greater amount than 25 million euros. And this year alone, federal budget for just for sports is over 70 million euros. On top of that, as a part of the process of reform of sports and the new Sports Act, that's going to be in the year 24 and on, significant investments in Croatian infrastructure when it comes down to stadium, national arenas, stadiums, and so forth and so on. And this will also give a tremendous push to our sports in general. I got to tell you a little side story of my own experience when it comes down to sports. I'm an ex-student athlete, and it was something that when I was graduating, something that was said at a commencement ceremony that really kind of stuck in my mind. And it went along the lines of a national association of collegiate association, and it was said that at the time in the United States there was about 400,000 student athletes that are going to become pro in something, and most of us are going to become pro in something else other than sports. And of course, it's so true. And this is why sport is so important, because sports builds people, builds characters, finds you a way to compete, to fight with others for a greater common cause and a cause of yourself as well. And at the same time, it was mentioned, you know, something that goes that people often say when it comes down to sports: you show me uncoachable kids or children, and I will show you bad employees, bad members of society in many ways. And it really is so much true. So this is why we take pride in all the sports accomplishments that we do, and this is why we take pride in all the investments and all the promotion of sports that we are doing overall, but of course in combination of tourism, and we're going to continue to do so. Now, as you might have had a chance to listen yesterday, our Minister of Tourism and Sport, Nikolina Brnjac, she was talking extensively about the reform process that's currently being undertaken and everything that we're doing for tourism in general, sustainable tourism, but of course, as part of it, important part of sports tourism. And this reform process that we're going through right now revolves around really core, which is sustainability and developing Croatia in a way that is a destination that's going to be very unique in many ways when it comes down to not just environmental sustainability, but sustainability, the social sustainability, economic, and so on and so forth. And of course, one of the strategic goals in that is become a year-long tourism destination that builds really strong tourism products that extend much further than the sun and the sea, of course. And we have recognized sports tourism to be one of those tourism products. And right now, we are in a process on investing 300 million euros of grants to the sports sector, and one part of the call is specifically designed for sports and active sports infrastructure. And this is by all our calculations and everything that we've done so far, we estimate that investments that's going to be at least 10 times more than just the amount of the grants that we're going to be issuing over the period of the next several months. So we are actually very excited about that. We're really excited about contribution with our strategical framework in terms of that we can offer to UNWTO, to our partners around Europe and around the world, because we really believe that we have put together a really strong policy, and policy that's gonna really that's really only way to go. It's the really only way to see and conduct tourism. And again, sports and tourism is such a great combination, because through sports you build people, you build men and women, and through tourism you bring people together. You erase the borders, you erase the differences, you know, and this is why all of us who get the privilege and honor to work in tourism and sports feel as though, I'm sure you share that feeling with me, feel like we're some of the luckiest people in the world, because it really is it's a great call. You know, so this is why it is very special to us, and this is why it's an honor for us to be able to host the second World Congress of Sports Tourism. We believe that everything that was said here over the past couple of days will definitely carry on, and Ion and I talked briefly earlier about that, everything that was said here really transpires into more policy, into more investments, into the way we do tourism in all our destinations around Europe and around the world. And we're really excited about that. We're excited about everybody that was here, and I was present, I think, mostly on all of the panels, at least for some period of time, and really, really great panelists that we had. And thank you very much for your contributions and everything you said. You are really not only experts, but you can see that you really care. And when people care and they know what they do, then there's no doubt the success coming that way. So to the final conclusion, on behalf of Minister of Tourism and Sport, Mrs. Nikolina Brnjac, on behalf of my colleague, State Secretary Josip Pavić, and myself, on behalf of the team of Ministry of Tourism and Sport, on behalf of Kristijan Stanišić, Director of National Tourism Board, and his team at National Tourism Board, on behalf of all our friends in UNWTO and everybody that was present, that in every way participated in this conference, we want to once again express our gratitude and tell you thank you for being part of this. Thank you for being with us. And we are very, very excited about everything that we're going to be doing in the future together. And we're excited about our contribution to the next third World Congress of Sports Tourism. And we are really, really looking forward to continue doing business with you in the future for the greatest call, I guess you could say, that anybody can imagine, which is work in sports and tourism. Thank you very much, and enjoy Croatia the rest of your time here.
Mr. Glavina, thank you for a beautiful wrap-up. What else to say? Once again, thank you for having us, all the moderators and panelists. And I have one final information, that the lunch is already being served. So enjoy the rest of the day and see you on some up-and-coming, beautiful future events. Take care.